नमस्कार मंडळी. मी प्रसाद अथणीकर, महाराष्ट्र मंडळ शिकागो 2023 चा अध्यक्ष. तुम्हा सर्वांचे आजच्या इतिहास मंच सेशन मध्ये स्वागत. I'll just repeat in English. Hey guys, this is Prasad Athanikar. I'm president of Maharashtra Mandal Chicago 2023. I would to invite all of you for this interesting topic in Itihas Manch today. I'll let our EC liaison Chetan Rege start the session. Chetan.
नमस्कार सगळ्यांना. चेतन रेगे, मी तुमचं सगळ्यांचं इतिहास मंचावरती स्वागत करतो. इतिहास मंच हा महाराष्ट्र मंडळ शिकागोचा एक उपक्रम जे आपण गेली 2021 पासून वेगवेगळ्या विषयांवर इतिहासातल्या विषयांचा अभ्यास करतो आणि त्यांच्यावरती व्याख्यान आयोजित करतो. आणि वेगवेगळ्या सेशन्स मधून आपण आतापर्यंत बरेच इतिहासातले विषय कव्हर केलेत आणि पुढेही करणार आहोत. So just to repeat this in English, today's session language will be English/Hindi. Our speaker, welcome Mr. Shreyas Suresh to Itihas Manch. We are very happy to have you. So Itihas Manch is a Friday session that we do when we study several history related topics, and we have brought prestigious speakers from India and US so far, and we have covered like several variety of topics from Sindhu Samskruti to all the way to Savarkar and Mahatma Gandhi. So today's topic is very interesting actually. Makar Sankranti, which is in English calendar year, we see that appears usually around 14th January or 15th January. Some of the references I've seen, every 72 years it travels like a day ahead. A good Makar Sankranti for Marathi people, it's very important day because Panipat War, third war of Panipat happened on that day. But it's a myth that Makar Sankranti wasn't on that day. Panipat War 3 happened on 14th January, and 10th January in that year 1761 was the Makar Sankranti. Now this is like but still it was very close. Every several years the day has been moving ahead because we look at the day or the constellation phenomena in a way that from the perspective or framework of the Gregorian calendar or Julian calendar for that matter. So that's one thing. So Makar Sankranti has been tied up with the Uttarayan, which is the sun's travel towards the north from the point of view of Earth. So that's one thing. Now this 25th December, that's a huge distant dot that we have to connect today. So I would not stress more upon this. I would invite Mr. Shreyas Suresh to speak on that. But I would like to introduce him. Shreyas Suresh is from Karnataka, Bharat. Completed his education in Bengaluru, and he has his bachelor's in engineering. He moved to the US with his wife in 2007. He has two sons, Shashwat and Sharva, ages 9 and 6. He's a SAP pre-sales consultant. After coming to the US, he joined the Hindu Swayamsevak Sangha, HSS. He's a volunteer. It's a volunteer-based organization, non-profit, social, educational, and cultural organization that aims to coordinate the Hindu American community to practice, preserve, and advance ideals and values of Hindu Dharma. While actively participating in all the Shakha activities, Shreyas has the daitva of Bauddhik Shikshak. So he's a knowledge teacher about in HSS Shakha. So I welcome Mr. Shreyas Suresh. I request you to start your session. Thank you.
Dhanyavad Chetanji, and namaskar to everyone who has gathered over here. This is a really very nice platform that too on a Friday evening where pretty much everyone will be winding down after a long week. It's very nice that you have such a nice Itihas Manch. And even in today's session, we'll do a little bit of looking at our own Itihasa. And the title, in a way, is a giveaway of what we are trying to do over here. We'll look at the different festivals, our own festivals like Uttarayan, Makar Sankrant, and see if there is any connection to what many people celebrate on December 25th. Right. So with that, let me share my screen. And again, with your permission, like I said, I'm fluent in English, so I'll do the presentation in English. But if somebody has a question or a comment, please feel free to do so in Hindi as well. I can understand it. And if it's in Marathi, feel comfortable with that as well. No issues. I think we have plenty of good translators over here. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And the main intent of this session is, I think most of these concepts and the festivals, in a way, we would have heard about it. And that was the case in my case as well. I knew all of these. And a few years ago, when I really tried to put my mind behind it, that's when it all, in a way, came together. And being one of the Bauddhic Shikshaks at Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, it's also another very good platform where we meet every Sunday, and we do Surya Namaskara, we do Khel, and we spend good amount of time in having these intellectual discussions, what we call as the Bauddhic, so that way we have something for the mind, body, and even the soul. And recently at one of our shakhas, I got this very good opportunity to present this topic. And that is where Prasad ji, he was also in attendance. He liked the topic and he gave me this amantran that I come here and I can share this information. So again, this is nothing proprietary. This may not be even new, but just putting all of this together, I had a very good aha moment a few years ago. And even now with all the social media that's coming in, I saw the same concepts being brought up again on Twitter and Facebook. So I thought it's a good thing where more people are becoming aware. And as this session is called Itihas Manch, we have to be aware of our Itihas. And again, because of the unfortunate situations of all the invasions and the occupation, many of our true Itihasa is interpreted as mythology, right? So it's very important that we understand our Itihasa. Unfortunately, many of the documentation might have been lost, but whatever little we can to revisit, almost like excavate, understand our Itihasa, and also teach it to our next generation. I think it is a very important responsibility, a daitva that we all have. So this is one small effort in that direction. And again, I would thank you all for providing me this platform to make one more contribution in that direction. So we'll get started. And again, I'll try to keep this interactive because I know it is a Friday evening. Many people would be tired, but every once in a while, I'll take a pause. Let's keep it interactive and it'll be really good. Right. So just like any session, I always like to start by asking some thought-provoking questions. Many of us might know the answer. Many of us may not know the answer. That's fine, because that's the whole point of this Itihas Manch, so that by the end of the session, we all have something, we are enriched with some new information that we can then take and propagate the knowledge as well, right? So I'll ask the first question. What is the significance of December 25th? Feel free to come off mute and answer.
Christmas.
Christmas, right? So around the world, December 25th is marked as Christmas, and it's a celebration, which many of the so-called Hindus also, they celebrate. But that is where I wanted, and even within my family, few of the relatives, they do that. But that is where I want to ask them, nothing wrong in celebrating, but always better to know the origins, find the significance. And once you understand that, then make an informed decision of whether you want to do it or not, or is there something like a better option, right? So yes, December 25th is Christmas. The next question is, so when did Christianity or December 25th become Christmas? And in the question, I've already given a slight hint over there. It started off during the Roman Empire. So it has gone a few, or at least a few centuries before. But does anybody know when Christianity started or officially became a religion? If not, no issues. We'll definitely address that. Does anyone know the form of religion, or I won't even call it as a religion, a form of worship that was happening before the Romans adopted Christianity? So let's think about that. We have all seen Christmas trees during Christmas. There is always a star on top of Christmas. If you ask a Christian, they might give you an answer, but do we really know what that star in original way represented? So let's think about that as well. And also, is there a connection? And that's the title of this presentation as well. Is there a connection of December 25th? Is there a seasonal significance of that, right? And at the end of it, this is the main intent, and this was the aha moment that I had. Is there a connection of Uttarayan, Makar Sankrant, and the festival of Christmas that is celebrated on December 25th, right? So by the end of this session, these are the kind of questions that we will have full answers. So you'll be equipped with this knowledge and you can propagate this information as well, right? So let's start off with one of those questions. When did it officially start? So like I said, it's in the Roman Empire, and it actually started in the 3rd century AD. So which means that it was after 300 years after the birth, and even you can say the death of Jesus Christ. So it's not something that it immediately happened after the life of Christ. It took a couple of 100 years after that, right? And I call it as officially started because it was adopted by the then Roman emperor. And I'll also give you that information as to how that emperor basically made Christianity the official state religion. But before adopting Christianity, the Romans actually celebrated December 25th as the day or the rebirth of the unconquered sun. They call it as Sol Invictus, right? So there itself, you'll see that even before Christ was born, or even after his death, or even the official adoption of Christianity as the official religion of the Roman Empire, there was already an existing festival, and that was called as Sol Invictus, and which basically means it's the rebirth of the unconquered sun. And just take a wild guess, what was the name of this deity, the sun god, if you want to call it, that the Romans worshipped during Sol Invictus? Feel free to come off mute and let me know. Take a guess. If you don't know, I'll give you a hint. If any of you practice Surya Namaskara, this is the first name that comes in Surya Namaskara, or the first mantra.
It's Mitraya Namaha. Mitra.
Perfect. Mitra. Isn't that fascinating? So the deity of Sol Invictus, the rebirth of the unconquered sun, the name of that deity was Mitra. And we all know that why we call Surya Bhagavan as Mitra, and as part of Surya Namaskara, we start off by saying Om Mitraya Namaha, right? So there itself, the first dot has been connected, right? So let's take a pause over here from what happened in the Roman Empire. We already got one factoid around Sol Invictus, the name of the deity being Mitra. And we'll come back to that because we have to connect all the dots. But before we do that, let's do our own self-study a little bit, right? Let's understand our own festivals because that's very important. So let's start off with Uttarayana. Can anyone define what is Uttarayana?
Sun starts going to the northern direction, Vishuvrutta, north of that starts coming.
Correct. Perfect. So Yana basically means journey. Uttarayana means the northerly journey. So it's the northerly journey of the sun. But very important to explain, and that's what I do explain to the kids as well. It is the apparent transition of the sun from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere. And it takes a duration of 6 years and 6 months, I should say, not 6 years. And it's an apparent transition. The reason we call it as apparent because the sun itself doesn't move. It's because of the Earth's tilt, the 23.5-degree axis, that you see that as the Earth revolves around the sun with this tilt, you feel that the sun is, over a period of 6 months, it is moving from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere. So I've got a couple of pictures over here that depict this particular movement. So what you would see is during winter, especially here in the Chicagoland area, this is very evident for us. So during winters, you'll see that the sun, starting from the sunrise to sunset, during winters, it is in the southern sky. And now that we are in spring, and once we get into summer in another month or so, you will see that the sun is actually, the sunrise is happening closer to the northern hemisphere, and the sun during the noontime is right above our head. So as you can see over here, the sunrise happens and it goes around a curve. So during winter, you'll actually see the sun almost diagonal. It is not on top of our head. And during summers, it's right on top of our head, because it almost, when you're on a latitude of 40 degrees, you feel that it's right on top of our head. And Chicagoland area happens to be at a latitude of 41 degrees north. So it is not still right on top of our head, but it appears that that is the way it is, right? So that is the Uttarayana. It's the northerly, or the apparent transition of the sun from south to north, right? And that's also a definition, because the sunrise will move or will shift from the lowest point on the southeast side to the highest point on the northern side. So that is what I'm depicting over here. You can see the different positions of the sun from the southernmost point in the southeast to the northernmost point, and the way it goes as the day progresses from east to west, right? So it's not like a straight line, it's always a curve. And this is something that you can very easily observe being in the northern hemisphere. Now, when does this journey start? It starts very much after the shortest day in the year. And does anybody know what we call that shortest day? It is called the winter solstice. And that is basically the shortest day, happens pretty much on a fixed, if you go by the Gregorian calendar, it happens pretty much on December 21st or 22nd of every single year. That would be the shortest day. So that is what we see over here in this curve. And from that point onwards, the northerly journey, or this Uttarayana, begins, and it ends on the longest day, which happens on June 21st, which I believe we now have called it as the International Yoga Day as well. So again, another significance that has been tied to the summer solstice, right? So with that understanding, let's also find out, why is Uttarayana caused? I already touched upon it a little bit. It is a combination of the Earth's axis, which has a tilt of 23.5 degrees. And it's also because of the revolution around the sun. So the combination of these two phenomena causes the Uttarayana, which is like the apparent transition of the sun from the southern to the northern hemisphere. We also talked about the shortest day. It's typically within a day's duration between 21st and 22nd December. That is fixed. Now let's look at the other festival that we talked about. What did we celebrate on January 15th, 2023?
Makar Sankranti.
Makar Sankranti, exactly. Now, because we are here in the US, we celebrated it actually, if you looked at the Panchanga and extrapolated it to the US timing, we were supposed to celebrate it on January 14th, but in Bharat, it was celebrated on January 15th, right? So that I wanted to give you that clue, but I think Madhavji, you already gave the answer. It is Makar Sankranti, one of the very popular festivals, and it goes by different names in different parts of Bharat, right? So we also call it as a Pongal, we call it Makar Sankranti, and so on. So now is the important question: is Uttarayana same as Makar Sankranti? Can anybody?
Technically, so Uttarayan would be a point where sun, from point of view of Earth, would take a U-turn and start moving north, right? So
Correct.
the point will be very different, and Makar Sankranti is like it. The sun is crossing the Tropic of Cancer, right? Oh, sorry, Capricorn. And from there, it's crossing that point is called Makar Sankranti. So it's a direction of Uttarayan, but the point where sun is, they are different.
Right. So Chetanji, that's what I also thought, that Makar Sankranti has something to do with the Tropic of Capricorn, but apparently it's not the case. So I'll come to that in a little while. So you're right. So technically they are not, but in today's world, we Hindus, we celebrate Uttarayana, and most of the our brothers and sisters in Gujarat, they celebrate it along with Makar Sankranti. So let's also understand, and that's the reason why it was a question that I wanted to pose. No, the answer is no. Technically, they're not the same, but over the years, we have continued to celebrate these two together, and that's why in this Itihas Manch, we'll go back in Itihas and we'll find out how they got together and why it's important that we need to understand that these are two separate festivals, and why it is important that at some point in the future, we will have to separate them out. Okay, so that'll be a good aha moment for everyone. So now let's understand what is Sankranti. So sorry, I skipped one bullet ahead. So we described and defined what is Uttarayana. Can anyone define Sankranti?
Moving ahead.
Sankramana.
Moving forward.
Sankraman. Yep. So Sankramana again means something that moves or changes or transitions. So what is transitioning over here? Chetanji took a guess. You said Tropic of Capricorn. That's a good guess. Because Capricorn sounds like it is Makara. Any other guesses? Or if you know it, please go ahead.
So the sun is the moving body here, and Makar is a tropic, which is like a line. What I meant was like a imaginary line on the surface of the earth, right? Which we know as a Capricorn. And when from the point of view of Earth, sun is taking U-turn, moving forward, which is Sankraman, towards Uttar Disha, and then at a point it crosses this Capricorn tropic. That point is Makar Sankrant. That's what I was trying to say.
Right, Chetanji. That was my initial few years ago. That was my understanding as well.
Okay.
But that is not the case. Anyone else wants to give a try? Okay, no issues. So it is the transition, and again, just like Uttarayana, here also it is the transition of the sun. It is the apparent transition of the sun. But Chetanji, it is not the Tropic of Capricorn, the latitude, but it is actually the Rashi, the zodiac of Makara, right? So how many zodiacs, how many Rashis are there?
12.
12, right? So it means the sun can transition from one Rashi to the other. So how many Sankrantis are there in a year? Well, as well, right? So why is only the Makara Sankranti so important? Because the sun will transition pretty much from one zodiac, from one Rashi to the other over a period of close to a month. But we provide special significance to Makara Sankranti, and we'll try to understand why that is the case. So as we discussed, when the apparent transition happens, and I have a picture that would depict this as well, for a person standing on the earth, and again, this is why our old Vedic astronomers, even though we call it as Jyotishya, it was all based on physical observations. And that's why it is so fascinating that they were able to do all of these observations and calculations thousands of years ago. And they were able to pinpoint and see how the transitions were occurring. And when you're standing on the earth, you feel that, again, the sun is moving, but it's not really the sun, but it's the revolution of the earth around the sun that makes us feel that the sun is going from one Rashi to the other. So when the sun transits into the Rashi of Makara, we call it as Makara Sankranti. So this would give you a good idea. So as you can see over here, for a person standing on earth over here, when they look at the sun, they would see that it has entered the Rashi. So as the earth revolves around the sun, and we have identified these 12 Rashis. So starting from Mesha all the way till Meena. So those are the 12 Rashis. And for a person standing on the earth, each time that point of reference is moving. So when the apparent transition, the Sankramana, happens from the Dhanur Rashi, which is Sagittarius, into Makara, that day is called as Makara Sankranti. Right? So most of our Hindu festivals, it is based on the lunar calendar. Sankranti, because it is the transition of the sun, it has to be based on the sun. So that is why Sankranti, it is not based on a lunar calendar, it is based on a solar calendar. Okay. Now, there is one other Sankranti, which is also very popular. And that it happens when, let's say, the earth moves a couple of Rashis and the sun enters Mesha. Does anybody know what that Sankranti is called? So the earth would have been over here, and if somebody is observing the sun transition, the Mesha Sankranti, it is celebrated, especially for our Tamil brothers and sisters. They celebrate it as the Sauramana Yugadi, because the sun is entering the first Rashi of Mesha, and they call it as Yugadi. So Makara Sankranti is one where the sun is entering the Rashi of Makara, and the Mesha Sankranti is the Sauramana Yugadi. Okay. Now, why, again, very important to understand, why is the Makara Sankranti so important? We discussed that there is Mesha Sankranti. For pretty much every Rashi, there will be a Sankranti. The reason why Makara Sankranti is so important is the Adhipati, or the what we call as the Lord of the Makara Rashi, is Shani, Saturn. And in our Vedic beliefs, we have the belief that Shani is the putra or the son of sun. So it is basically S-O-N of S-U-N. So Shani is the son of the Surya Bhagavan, and it is a glorious reunion of the father and the son. So it's almost like Surya Bhagavan, who is the father, is visiting the house of his own son, that is Shani. So this union is celebrated as Makar Sankranti.
Can I ask one question, Shreyas ji?
Yes, Vandana ji. Yes.
Is Ugadi it comes around the same time as our Gudi Padwa. So is
Correct.
there some connection between that? Is there some? Yeah,
So
go ahead.
Gudi Padwa, Ugadi, it is again the lunar calendar. So there, the very first date of the Chaitra Masa, that is celebrated as the Pratipada is celebrated as Gudi Padwa or Ugadi. So that is the official beginning of the calendar of the Hindu calendar. That is the day when we do the Panchanga Shravana and all of that. But Sankranti, as you saw, it is one of the last festivals of the Hindu calendar.
Thank you.
But because we are following the Gregorian calendar, we feel as though it is one of the first festivals because it occurs in the month of January. Right? So Gudi Padwa is followed by the Chaitra Navratri, and that is the time wherein we do Upvasa, we do the worship of the mother god Parvati in her 9 different forms, followed by Sri Ramanavami. So the Navami, the 9th day of Chaitra Masa, is Sri Ramanavami. So that's one of the first festivals, right? So I think this is a very simple question. This is a softball question. Like all of our Hindu festivals, that's the best part. We have very good delicacies. We have very specific delicacies that we make for each and every festival. Can anyone shout out the delicacy that we do for Makar Sankranti, that we cook for Makar Sankranti?
Tilgud.
Perfect. Tilgud. So 100 points to you. And there is also a significance of Tilgud. It's not just we have til, we have good. These are very good, healthy things that we put it together. Here, the cultural and the historical, the Itihasic significance is the good is supposed to represent the sun, and til, which we also use for any of the Shanti, that Shani Shanti that we do, that is to represent the Shani, Saturn. So again, the union of sun and Shani is represented symbolically and also in a very delicious fashion in Tilgud. Okay. So far, so good. Are we unraveling more information? Is it good?
Yes, yeah.
Perfect.
Very
So
good.
now let's, thank you, Dhanyavad. Now we had paused. We were looking at what was happening in the Roman Empire. We came and we looked at our own Sanatana Dharma festivals, Uttarayana and Makar Sankranti. We have now understood that these are 2 separate festivals. We have understood what is Uttarayana. We have understood what is Makar Sankranti in a much more deeper level, right? So let's go back to where we had paused, right? We had one of the questions earlier. What was the form of worship in Europe during, even before the Roman Empire, before Christmas was formally or officially adopted? Even if you today, if you go into the encyclopedias or any of the historical books, you will see that there were the people who were there before Christianity was adopted. They are called a term as pagans, right? So that is the term that is used for the people who practiced a form of worship prior to the, I would say, even to the extent of imposition of Christianity on them. So if this is a screenshot from Christianity.com, so this is not something that is mocked up. You can go in and take a look at it as well. A couple of very interesting aspects of the pagans were, they felt that the entire universe was interconnected, They were in a way polytheists, so they had many forms of gods. But the very important point was they felt that the divinity and nature were inseparable. They were one and the same. The energies flowed between the divinity and the nature, and they were part of it. So this is called as the pantheism or the animism. That is the term that the Western intelligentsia they use for the kind of belief system that pagans had, right? Something very relatable, relatable to us Hindus, our Sanatana dharmas as well, right? In addition to that, they were polytheists. So that means they had multiple gods, goddesses, deities. We already looked at one such deity, Sol Invictus, Mitra, right? So again, very something that we can very easily relate to, because even in Hindu dharma, we give a human form to the Bhagwan and to the Devi Devatas. And we, not only that, we give them very human characteristics as well, right? So even though Bhagwan is all powerful, all knowledgeable, we make sure that they have a family. Sometimes certain Bhagwan, they lose their temper. Sometimes they have to meditate. We basically see ourselves in our Bhagwan. Very similar to the pagans as well. And they were also polytheists. And as you can see in Christianity.com, this is how they define it as well. So they say that they were, even their deities were not considered to be perfect, but they were still venerated because they were considered as wise and powerful. And that was something very significant for the pagans. And this is where all these practices and belief systems that the pagans have, I felt that they drew their inspiration, or it might very well have been a couple of thousand years ago, Sanatana Dharma. The influence of Vedic Sanatana Dharma was incorporated, had an indelible impression on the folks in Europe as well. Just that they were called as pagans, but if you look at it, their belief system is very similar to our belief system that we have, in a way, fortunately, we have carried on even today. Whereas these pagans, they are pretty much, they have been completely eliminated in Europe. So these were our brothers and sisters in Europe having a very similar belief system and practices as Sanatana Dharma.
Sureshji?
Right? Yes. Mm-hmm.
So prior to Christianity, there was Judaism.
Right.
So were they considered pagan?
So Judaism or the Jews are, along with Christianity and Islam, they are called as Abrahamic religions. More or less started around the Jerusalem and the today's Israel and Palestine region. But if you looked at the old Europe, where the Roman Empire was there, those people, they had the pagan belief system where they had individual gods and goddesses. So if you look at any of the Greek history or what we call as the Greek mythology, they had human forms. So just the way we have human forms for Surya Bhagavan, Shani Bhagavan, and so on, they also had, like, for Neptune, they had Zeus, and so on, right? So they had human forms. So it's not same as Judaism. Judaism is more of an Abrahamic religion, which has very common basis to the other two recent Abrahamic religions, Christianity and Islam as well. Now, if you go to Britannica, you will see that they have, in a very diplomatic and a very concise form, they have called this out. They have said that in the 3rd century, in the Roman Empire, whatever we had discussed earlier, Sol Invictus was the celebration that was happening on December 25th. So it was a very well-established holiday and a festival. And there was another festival as well called as Saturnalia, right? So again, just the way we have Uttarayan for Sol Invictus, and we have Makar Sankrant, which has a tie-in with Saturnalia. And the third connection is and they have also called it out clearly. They call it as the Indo-European deity, Mitra. This was a very well established festival, right? So before 3rd century, there was no Christmas on December 25th. You had Sol Invictus, you had Saturnalia, and the people of Europe, mostly under the Roman Empire, they used to celebrate basically enjoy the festivities of the deity was called as Mitra, right? Now in 336 AD, that is the exact date when the then Roman Emperor Constantine, he basically declared that December 25th is going to be Christmas, right? And you can say that this is also a very important statement over here. And this happens even today. So that's why I want us to think about this. This is happening even today, where something that is Vedic, something that is related to Sanatana Dharma gets absorbed, digested, and they cut off the roots of the Vedic thing and they make it sound as though it was something from another religion. So we have to learn from this. And as it's shown over there, the selection of December 25th as Christmas had a political motive. It was less to do with any spirituality. It was more of a political move by Constantine, the Roman emperor, who wanted to impose Christianity throughout Rome. And basically, he could do that by usurping, absorbing, digesting. Digestion is a term that Rajiv Malhotra ji, he uses it, and he gives a lot of good information around that, which is happening even today. And it was basically to ensure that the pagan celebrations of Sol Invictus, Saturnalia gets completely eliminated and replaced by Christmas. Okay, so hopefully that was some good information that many of us wouldn't have known, but this is something that we have to know, right? And especially for the folks who want to celebrate Christmas, you have to know this basic information, right? So now let's connect all the dots. We have done a little bit of Purva Paksha. We have understood the origins of Christmas. We have also understood our own festivals of Uttarayana and Makar Sankranti. But now let's all put these together, and hopefully you'll have that aha moment now, right? But before that, one quick point about Saturnalia as well, because again, it's important because like we have Uttarayana, which is dedicated to sun. We also have Makara Sankranti, the union of sun and Saturn. Saturnalia was again around the winter solstice time, dedicated to the deity of Saturn. And again, as you can see over here, it has been in a way replaced by Christmas, right? So if you go to history.com, you can learn a little bit more about the Saturnalia as well. And it was more of a harvest festival dedicated to the deity of Saturn. Okay. Another important connection that we can make is, and even today in a limited sections of Europe, they celebrate this festival called as Yule, where they burn logs, indicating the end of the shortest day and the expansion of the days. And very similar to what we have in Northern Bharat, especially in Punjab, that we celebrate, and that is Lohri. Right, so you can see that we have so many common connections that have been established a couple of thousand years ago. Fortunately for us, Hindus and Bharatiyas, we have continued these traditions. Unfortunately for many of our brothers and sisters in Europe, they have not continued to do so. Right. So in history.com, there is this very good question. They basically have asked, is Christmas a pagan holiday? And as you can see, it was basically something that it had got usurped because Rome took, the Emperor Constantine took the decision that Christmas is going to be the official religion. So as it would happen, and even today we see this, whenever there are two conflicting belief systems, one takes over the other. And that is why we have to learn from this Itihasa as well, because basically Christians, they took over whatever pagans were practicing, that basically ended. And the way they took it over was making sure that anything that was good in the pagan practices, they incorporated it. So anything in Sol Invictus or Saturnalia, lighting of the candles, merrymaking, singing. So again, during Christmas, you have all those Christmas carols. So all of that just didn't start because of Christianity. It was already there. It got completely usurped and absorbed. That is the most important term over there. Something that we have to be aware and ensure that our Vedic Sanatana Dharma doesn't get absorbed and metamorphosed into something else. Right? One last foundational concept that will bring all of these points together. And that is, and this is the key, this is like the key to the entire puzzle. That is called as precession. Has anybody heard the term precession?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Can you define what is precession, or at least in your own words?
Yeah, the precision, the motion around on a fixed axis, going round and round, like a top. When it is moving, it moves around itself. At the same time, it moves around one central axis, and it goes basically around that axis, which you can say that it is the motion of the planets. Planets is the precision motion as well as rotating around themselves.
Perfect. You described it perfectly. It is like the wobble of a top. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, was there a comment or a question?
No.
All good? All right. So that's exactly the case. So as kids, or at least I have had the great opportunity of playing with the top. In Karnataka, we used to call it as bugri. So with just a bugri, we used to spend hours together, especially during our summer holiday time. But even the earth, if you look at it, it is like a top that wobbles around its northern axis. And again, something that we need to keep in mind, this is a very slow phenomenon. This happens over a period of 26,000 years. So over a duration of 26,000 years, the earth would have wobbled once, right? Now, why is this the key to the puzzle? This is something that Chetanji hinted right at the beginning in his introductory comments. So one more thing about the precession. So right now, because of the way the earth is precessed, right now our pole star, do we know what we call as the pole star in Sanskrit or in our Vedic version?
Dhruva Tara.
Dhruva Nakshatra or Dhruva Tara, exactly. So Polaris or Dhruva Nakshatra is our pole star. In another 12,500 or 13,000 years, the Dhruva Nakshatra will be Vega because the wobble would have tilted it. Do we know what Vega is called?
Abhijit.
Abhijit, fantastic. So you guys are fully aware of it. So this is the reason, this precession is the reason, and that's the scientific definition. It gives the full information. So I'll share this document so you can have it. But basically, it's caused by the gravitational forces of the sun, moon, and the tidal forces. That is what causes this wobble. And it's called the axial precession. Now, because of this precession, Makar Sankranti, over a period of 72 years, we feel that the sun takes an additional day to Sankramana into the Makara Rashi, right? So it doesn't happen overnight. It happens little by little. It's an incremental delta change over a period of 72 years. So that's why within our lifetime, we feel that Sankranti, Makara Sankranti is coming pretty much on the same day. But if somebody with very good health were to live over 100 years, and if they have kept a track of this, they would have seen that when they were a kid, the Makar Sankranti would have happened on one day, and then by the time they have grown old, it has precessed or advanced by one day, right? So that is the reason why Makar Sankranti moves by one day, and it happens incrementally, but really we see the significant change by one day in a period of 72 years, right? So let's fast forward then. So every 72 years, Makara Sankranti is moving ahead or precessing by one day. So if we go ahead by 9,000 years, can anybody guess when Makara Sankranti will occur? Any guesses? So this will be your first aha moment. It will be in the month of June. So Gregorian calendar will be celebrating Makara Sankranti in June, not in January. But this is 9,000 years. So I don't think any of us will be here. Maybe our great grandchildren, if they are still following the Vedic traditions, they will have Makara Sankranti celebrated in the month of June. And at that point, Makara Sankranti will indicate the beginning of Dakshinayana. So it is no longer Uttarayan at that point. So sometime from now to the next 9,000 years, at some point there is a moment of reckoning where we'll have to bifurcate Uttarayana and Makara Sankranti. If not, in the next 9,000 years, we'll be forced to do so, because it'll no longer be Uttarayana, it'll be Dakshinayana, because after June 21st, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, this is a silly question on my part, but will it mean that if Sankranti is going to be in June 9,000 years from now, does that mean that it will be winter in the northern hemisphere, summer in the northern hemisphere? I'm sorry, winter in the northern hemisphere in June? Will the weather?
No. So our seasons will be the same.
Okay.
Right? That is why it's important to understand that Makara Sankranti and Uttarayana are completely different. And that's why we set that right up front.
Okay.
And Makara Sankranti, it has to do more with the zodiac and the movement of the sun from one Rashi to the other, in this particular case, Makara. And because of the precession, this will get delayed by one single day, and over a period of 9,000 years, that Makara Sankranti date, the moment Surya Bhagavan enters the Shani's Rashi, which is Makara, will happen in June. It'll still be summer for folks in the northern hemisphere. It'll be winter in the southern hemisphere, but we can no longer call it as Uttarayana. It'll be Dakshinayana at that point. So that's why I said between now till the next 9,000 years, some person of authority in the Hindu Samaj will have to make a call and decide that let's bifurcate this. Uttarayana has to be done during some auspicious date within the Uttarayana period. We cannot associate it with Makara Sankranti. That will have to happen someday. I don't know when it'll happen, but hopefully it happens soon.
Currently also there is a delta between Uttarayan and Makar Sankranti, right? Uttarayan is happening in December and Makar Sankranti
Correct.
in 15 January. So
correct.
We might as well do it now.
Exactly, right? But we are still, if you want to call it, we are still in the relatively small duration. It's within the area of percentage of error or threshold. You can call it tolerance level. So that's why from December 25th to Jan 15th, it's not much of a difference. We are still in the phase of Uttarayana. But yes, the sooner we decide to bifurcate, and at least having this knowledge, I think it's important. Right? Now we went 9,000 years ahead. What if we go back? And this is, I kept saying there's an aha moment, there's an aha moment. We are finally getting to it. So we took a very circuitous route to come to this. So this is my homemade time machine. It's a HMT watch. So let's wind back the time and go back in time And let's try to look at what happened to the date of Makar Sankranti around the dates that we discussed earlier, around the adoption or the imposition of Christianity in the Roman Empire. Okay. So let's do that. So let's actually go to, I use this very easy to use Panchanga. I've brought up Makar Sankranti, but when I do this, I'll also encourage everyone to be, in any case, in our schools, colleges, and in our daily work life, we follow the Gregorian calendar. We also follow the time zones. But I would definitely request you and encourage you to take a look at our traditional Panchanga as well, because it is very scientific. Does anybody know what is today's date in our Panchanga, in the Hindu calendar? No? Tomorrow is a very important festival.
Akshay Tritiya, right?
Vaishak Shuddha. Yeah, Vaishak Shuddha Pratipada. Or
Today is Dvitiya.
Today is Dvitiya.
Correct.
But it's tomorrow.
Correct. And Tritiya is tomorrow. But if you look at it, in Bharat, it is already Akshay Tritiya. So in the next 15 minutes, so that's how precise our Hindu calendar is. In the next 15 minutes, the Tritiya Tithi for us here in the US will begin. Right? So it is not necessarily the sunrise and sunset. Our Tithis span multiple days. So it's already Akshay Tritiya in Bharat. For us, it'll happen in 15 minutes. So advanced Akshay Tritiya wishes to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shreyas.
Yes.
Shreyas, I got a question.
Yes.
Lokmanya Tilak.
Mhm.
I'm not a mathematician, or I don't know anything about this astronomy or astrology. But according to Lokmanya Tilak, he established Sankrant on the January 10th. And I don't know how much.
Right.
But
so let's do that. That's a very good point. So Lokmanya Tilak ji, he was there, let's say around 100 years ago. So let's do that. So let's change it from 2023. So here it was January 14. I put the location as Bolingbrook, but in Bharat, it was January 15. So if you go back 100 years, right? Sankranti 100 years ago was still on the 14th, right? So there might have been a different historical significance, but let's say we go back 1,000 years. It was on December 31st. So 10th century, it was on December 31st. And again, this is all because of the phenomena of precession that makes the apparent transition of Surya Bhagavan into the Shani Rashi, not Shani Rashi, sorry, into the Makara Rashi, get moved by one day. And again, remember, it is a cycle. So after 26,000 years, it in a way gets reset and it comes back.
Can you
Now
go
let's
back to year about 300?
Let's do that. That's exactly where we are going. So let's go to year
1761. That's the year of the Panipat. That we know that it Sankrant.
1761. Let's check it out. Yeah.
It will show 10th January.
There you go. So historically, and yeah.
It is so amazing.
So Panipat battle did happen on Sankranti, but on that, from a date wise, Gregorian calendar, that date would be January 10th, but the Makara Sankranti date, because it is related to it's influenced by precession, it has moved ahead by 4 days. Right? Now let's go back to the 3rd century when Christmas or Christianity was adopted. So it was December 23rd, right? Very close to,
right?
Sorry?
336, right?
336, yeah, let's make that. So again, remember, even though Constantine, he declared it, it took another couple of 100 years for it to get established. In fact, maybe I didn't mention that clearly, but there is that duration. But what I wanted to show you is when
this is
the
very
Vedic,
similar. I mean,
correct.
So what we celebrate is Shiva Jayanti, for example, right? Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was born in 1630, yeah, as per the calendar, and on 19th February. So we started celebrating during his lifetime, or even 100 years after his lifetime. It was not a festival, Shiva Jayanti. Right. It was started somewhere in early 1900s by Lokmanya Tilak to empower the Swaraj movement, right? To fight against British and unite people. So at that time, Shiva Jayanti became the festival. So it's a similar thing. Now it's a very big festival in India, especially Maharashtra region. You will see people gather, and there are so many activities they do. But it was not the festival during Shivaji Maharaj's lifetime.
Correct.
It's a similar analogy.
Very similar. But look at this. 250 AD, Makar Sankranti was on December 21st, which is winter solstice, the day after which it is Uttarayana. So yes, at one point in time, 2000 years ago, when our Vedic Sanatana Dharma was not just in Bharat, it had a worldwide influence, especially within Europe. And that is why even in that encyclopedia, they call it as Indo-European deity Mitra. At that point, Uttarayana, Makara Sankranti were on the same day. Makara Sankranti kept precessing and moving ahead by a day, which also coincides with December 25th, when officially Christianity was adopted, again, plus or minus by a day. But the main point over here is the influence that the Sanatana Dharma, the Vedic influence that was there, that was the foundation for even these so-called pagan festivals as well, right? So that is why historically, Itihasic, we have celebrated Uttarayana and Makar Sankranti together. And that has continued because many people, they don't know this. Maybe this was documented, right? Maybe there was like like an expiration date when people would have said, no, let's not keep Uttarayana along with Makara Sankranti. But over the years, as we have discussed, there's a lot of invasions, a lot of good knowledge has been lost. And that is why we still just continue to celebrate Uttarayana along with Makara Sankranti. Right? So hopefully that was a good aha moment for you guys.
Shreyas, I got another question. You talk about Roman and Catholic system, Catholicism. But before that, during the Jesus time, the Christianity is called, according to modern Christology and Christian study, called primitive Christianity. Then pop up Syrian Christianity, Egyptian Christianity, and Greek Christianity variation. But all of them celebrate Jesus' birthday on January 6th. So can you find out what January 6th was a Makar Sankrant day?
January 6th, again, if you, it might be a few more 100 years after that. So as we saw, I went to 1000 AD, which is the 10th century. 10th century, it was December 31st. So I would say somewhere around the 12th or the 13th century, it might have come around January 6th.
How about 2010, 23 years back? Means beginning of the first century.
Okay. That would have been before December 21st.
Yeah.
So let me just put it as 001 because I don't think it'll take all the 4 zeros.
00.
It was 17th December.
I think this is Rik Panchanga, which are the Panchanga.
Right.
But do they follow lunar panchang or do they follow the other solar panchang?
And I'm not aware of how the ancients would people of that region would have done it. But if there was influenced by Bharat, then they would have definitely celebrated the festivals of Uttarayana, just the way we saw that it is related to Sol Invictus, the rebirth of the unconquered sun of the deity Mitra, and also Saturnalia, which is in celebration of Shani or Saturn. So there are those connections, right? And again, very important to note, when the Vedic astrology, or I would even call it as astronomy, it's not even astrology. It is a science. It was a science. At the peak of it, Makar Sankranti was December 21st, which was the beginning of Uttarayana. So that's how it is connected. And 336 AD, when the church selected December 25th, that was also a huge festival of the so-called pagans, the natives of Europe. They had huge celebrations for Mitra and also the Shani. Right?
I have a question, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Bhishma left his body on the auspicious day of Uttarayana, winter solstice.
Right.
So, which obviously even the date about the Mahabharata or a year of the Mahabharata war is kind of what you can say debatable to some extent. And I read somewhere like the days were totally different than today's, and I can see that. So that is kind of interesting.
Right. So Uttarayana, that date will not change. It'll be, again, if you go by the Gregorian calendar, it is December 21st or 22nd. The Tithi might have been different 3,000 or 5,000 years ago. So I also don't know the exact Tithi, but you're absolutely right. Bhishma, since he had the Ichha Mrityu Vardhan by his father Shantanu, he waited until Uttarayana and then he departed his body. You're absolutely right.
Well, thank you very much.
For that, Atul Dada, Nilesh Oak gives a lot of good reasoning. He has actually used all the calculations to show what dates mean what, and references from Mahabharata and other sources too.
It's on YouTube, right? I will check it again.
On YouTube or his books, basically.
Right. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. So just look at the similarity. Sorry, go ahead. Is there a comment?
Yeah, a few comments.
Sure.
One is the December 21st. That's when around year 250 or 300. That's when December 21st. That's when the Makar Sankranti was. So it is possible that the celebration of Makar Sankranti and Uttarayan started somewhere.
Correct.
At that time. And somehow that tradition persisted.
Correct.
Through the centuries.
Correct.
So so that was about year 300.
292. Yep.
The Vedic astronomy, and I think you should use the term astronomy and not the astrology.
Agreed.
Okay. Because astrology is totally different, but the Vedic astronomy wasn't even a peak at year 300. It was even well before that.
True.
Aryabhata's time was around year 500. The Vedanga Jyotish, which was written by Lagada, that was probably about 1000 BC.
Okay.
And a lot of these calculations are well documented in that Vedanga Jyotish book, which is the oldest classical book on the Vedic astronomy. Okay. So the year 300 may have something to do with not so much the astronomical knowledge, but maybe some kingdom or some dynasty that started celebrating somewhere in India. Okay.
Something that had a very important, significant influence.
Yeah,
very true.
I mean, that was the time when the Satavahan kingdom was pretty strong in southern part of India. It was almost at its end, but around year 250. Okay. So it probably has more to do with it.
Most likely. Yep.
The third thing is all ancient civilizations relied on the lunar calendar, because that was the only way to tell the day of the month or the time of the year by looking at the moon, or phase of the moon. I mean, now we have a calendar hanging on the wall, so we know what day of the year is. But at ancient times, everyone followed the lunar calendar. But there was no other way to do it. Okay, thanks. By the way, it was
absolutely
good presentation, good explanations.
Thank you. Thank you. Just some facts that we have uncovered and just wanted to put it together. And I'll summarize this in one quick slide. Just look at the amazing similarities. To your point, sorry, I didn't get your Shubhnam, but yes, they must have been a very important influence from the Bharatiya subcontinent in Europe that influenced even the what we call as the pagans to have very similar customs and traditions influenced by our Sanatana Dharma. So they had Saturnalia, where they used feasts and exchange gifts, very, very similar to how we do the exchange of tilgud during Sankranti. Even today, a few of the Europeans who have tried to keep the tradition, they have Yule, which is similar to Lori. They celebrate rebirth of the unconquered sun, which was very much on December 25th, which in a way, as we saw, around the 250-300 AD time frame, it is basically the Uttarayana and Makar Sankranti. And one thing that it's slam dunk evidence is even today, they acknowledge that the deity of soul invictus was called as Mitra. And that is basically our very first mantra in the Surya Namaskar. That is Om Mitraya Namaha. Right? So again, why we have this Itihasik Manch, why we have to learn history? If we don't learn from our history, it repeats itself. So any of the issues and challenges that we have gone through, it is very important that we learn from it. I know many of you are wise enough to know exactly what I mean by it. Right? So let's recap the initial set of questions. Now that we have gone through this almost like an hour-and-a-half session, hopefully this was interesting. We now have all the answers to those questions. The significance of 25th, we already knew about it, but now we know that it is not the original date of the Christmas. It was only introduced by Emperor Constantine with a political motive to weaken the pagan traditions. Again, pagan being like a term to say that these were folks who had very common belief systems like the Sanatana Dharma. We looked at how it officially started, the form of worship of pagans, which was polytheism, animism, which is very similar to Sanatana Dharma. The seasonal significance of 25th, how Makar Sankranti was during that time frame, it was there. We saw how Uttarayana and Makar Sankranti around 200 AD was on the same day on December 21st, and how Makar Sankranti moved towards 25th as well. Last but not the least, the star on the tree. That again represents, now a traditional Christian might give you a different answer, but this picture will indicate what that star on that Christmas tree is. It is the sun. And with that, I'll say Om Mitraya Namaha and wish you a very auspicious Akshaya Tritiya. Dhanyavad.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dhanyavad. Excellent talk.
Dhanyavad.
It was a
Any other
Thank you.
comments? Yeah.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will request Madhav Gokavleji to
Yes.
Chetan, will this be available on YouTube?
Yes, it will be.
Okay. Thank you.
Hold on, we'll have a question answer session discussion. Madhavji, can you please give a vote of thanks?
Yes, I will. Sureshji, please unshare your screen?
Oh, sure.
Dhanyawad, Surajji. Very beautifully you explained us the Christmas and when it started and Uttarayan, Makar Sankranti, all those, how it relates back to our Hinduism or it was beautifully, really, learn a lot. We really appreciate. Thank you for coming on our Itihas Manch and giving us such a beautiful lecture, and more importantly, the true meaning of Christmas. How we now, it has changed my, view, how I look at it now. I can explain to all my Christian friends also when it comes to that. Definitely, now with you have empowered us. धन्यवाद, थँक्यू. with महाराष्ट्र मंडळाच्या वतीने त्याचप्रमाणे आमचे इतिहास मंच आयोजकांच्या वतीने मी तुमचे आभार मानतो. धन्यवाद.
धन्यवाद.
त्याचप्रमाणे महाराष्ट्र मंडळ शिकागो यांनी हे जे इतिहास मंच आमच्यासाठी आपल्या सर्वांसाठी उपलब्ध करून दिले त्याबद्दल मी महाराष्ट्र मंडळाचे आभार मानतो. त्याचप्रमाणे आमचे इतिहास मंडळाचे सगळे आयोजक चेतन रेगे, त्याचप्रमाणे शलाका रेगे, अनु केळकर, myself in that, all these they behind the scene they work lot. त्यानंतर आमची तांत्रिक टीम की जी पडद्यामागे सदैव याच्यावर काम करत असतात. रेकॉर्डिंग करणं, यूट्यूब सुरू करणं, त्याचप्रमाणे एडिटिंग करणं, बरंचसं ते करतात त्यांचे. आणि खास विशेष म्हणजे इतिहास मंचाला मिळणारे आमचे श्रोते, ते श्रोतेच नाही आहेत तर ते जिवंत इतिहास आहेत आमच्यासाठी. किंवा त्यातले आमचे दामले काका किंवा देवधर दादा, तुम्ही पाहिला असाल की प्रत्येक वेळाला त्यांचे असे काही सुंदर प्रश्न असतात किंवा विश्लेषण ते इतके सुंदर करतात. संपूर्ण सगळेजण एका सगळ्या श्रोत्यांचेही मी आभार मानतो. धन्यवाद. आणि मला वाटतं तुमचं नाव आम्हाला प्रसादने दिले तर प्रसादचे मी आभार मानतो, किंवा ज्यांनी दिला असेल त्यांचे मी आभार मानतो. धन्यवाद. आणि मी आता हा सेशन, ह्या कार्यक्रमाची सूत्रे चेतनच्या हाती देतो, म्हणजे आपण प्रश्न उत्तराचा सत्र आता सुरू होईल. धन्यवाद.
Dhanyawad, Madhavji. And thank you so much, Prasadji, Chetanji, for this wonderful opportunity, for this wonderful platform. Thank you.
Prasad had a very good word, and we were like trying to schedule it, and thank you for working with our timeline and dates.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Sure.
And Vishal Navalkar and Anu Kelkar, thanks to them too, because they work on the admin's team, and the session's beautiful video will be edited by her. So
fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Damle Kaka has a question, I think.
Damle Kaka, you're on mute.
Unmute, please.
Yeah. Shreyas, very good presentation. Learn a lot of new things. But once you say every 72 years, Sankrant change one day.
Correct.
So if you go back also, it should go back also after 72 years, one day also.
Correct.
And another thing, you talk about burning the log in the Europe and Lori or Holi in Maharashtra also. I think that because of the winter, to keep the warm and keep the warm, people, just like a Yajna, people come together on their BO warm up. And while doing that, Yajna is a theological thing, while the Holi or Sankrant, you can have singing and dancing. So like a tribal type. Okay, this is my one of the observation. And same thing must be in Europe, because according to Lokmanya Tilak, when he wrote about the Arctic home in Vedas, and all, he little bit referred to that. So my question, when I asked, the longest, shortest day was 21st of December, and longest day is 21st of June.
Correct.
So within that time, some original day according to Vedic, I'm using the word Vedic rather than Sanatan, but Sanatan is a unit. According to Vedic calendar, which described the Sankrant, about the Sankrant, 21st of December. Then they move after 72 years, next day.
Correct.
Like that possibility is there. Second thing, the Jesus birth according to pre-Roman Christian, 6th of December. Still Greek Roman Church or Russian Church, they celebrate Christmas on the 6th of January. So 6th of January.
Correct.
So but your presentation is really good.
Thank you. So that's why, Damle Kaka, as we saw, we moved the date to the Battle of Panipat, and we saw it was actually January 10th. So historically, that was accurate as well. So that is why we say all of our other Hindu festivals, it is based on the lunar calendar. So just the way we are going to celebrate Akshaya Tritiya, it is a Tritiya of Chaitra Masa, Shukla Paksha. But Sankranti, that too Makara Sankranti, it is not based on the lunar calendar. It is based on the day that from Earth, we see the sun moving to Makara Rashi. So that has no, that Tithi would change every single day. And we just use the Gregorian calendar so that we could connect it back to the Uttarayan date, which is the winter solstice, and also importantly, the December 25th. But if you look at it similarly, if I go to Drik Panchanga and I make if I put in the value, the lunar calendar or Hindu calendar Tithi also would be different for Makara Sankranti every 72 years. And it's all based on precession. Yep.
As you say, sometimes after some 9,000 years, whatever that,
correct,
will be in June.
Correct.
And then it will go further and further. And after 9,000, it will be again 21st of the December, right?
Correct. Correct. So what I'm saying is that's why sometime in this duration, some Mahan Bhav or like a Mandali or Hindu organization should make a call that now it's time to bifurcate Uttarayana. Let's celebrate it maybe towards the end of December itself. Maybe we should reinstate December 25th as Uttarayana instead of, I see many of my relatives, they put a Christmas tree. They don't even know the significance of it. Maybe that's a good day to reintroduce Uttarayana because Makara Sankranti will keep on moving.
My naive question is that when was the first Makar Sankrant start on the 21st of December? Do you have any data, particular year, which?
So that's why I said,
so to answer that, we know the equation now, like 72 years it takes to move one day, right? The Sankranti for the same thing, we have to travel from 15th January to 21st December, which is 26 days, right? So 26 times 72 gives us about 1800 something.
Correct.
And so we go back from 2023 minus 1800, whatever it is, we get to say 150 AD, right? So that will be
150 or 250 AD, correct.
Yeah, in that time frame, 21st December and Makar Sankranti will be same.
Yeah, but according to what is it, Nilesh Oak and another scholar, P.N. Oak also, they consider time of Mahabharata war is 5,000 years almost 5,000 years before.
5,561 BC.
Yeah, exactly. So Chetan is a Jyotishi guy. He knows the calendar. I'm talking the round figure. So that time, what day the Sankrant Uttarayan start that year?
We'll have to calculate. I haven't done it. Good question.
I think Uttarayan is always on December 21st.
Yes.
Correct.
Because
Sankranta keeps changing.
That is correct.
And we figured out it's around year 200. It it happened on December 21st.
That is
December 21st, that's when the Satvahans were ruling most of India, or at least southern part of India. And they're known to have a trade relations with the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of documentary evidence to that effect. And even in Rome, they found a lot of artifacts that date back to that particular time frame. The Mahabharata probably had nothing to do with Makar Sankrant. I'm sure it has, Uttarayan has something to do with it, but not the Makar Sankrant.
Correct.
The Indian astronomy really does not have zodiac signs. Indian astronomy, when you go to the Vedanga Jyotish, it only has nakshatra. They divided the sky in 27 nakshatra.
Right.
It has no mention of zodiac signs, which is dividing the sky in 12 zones.
The Rashis.
Yeah.
So
Rashi,
are you saying that the Rashi concept, maybe they introduced it at a later point?
The Rashi concept came mostly from the Greeks and Romans.
Okay.
So that got integrated into Indian astronomy in the later part, maybe after the Greeks came to India. Now, Alexander came and went back, but a lot of Greek knowledge kept coming to India. So Alexander came to
and
India.
vice versa, right? So they were
vice versa. It was both ways. But
exchange,
a lot of Greek knowledge did come to India, and along with that, the Rashi concept came. So that was after 300 BC.
Mm-hmm.
Indian astronomy dates back well before that, and all of the references before that are strictly on the nakshatra. There are no zodiac signs. So obviously there was no Makar Sankranti per se before that.
Right.
They celebrated Uttarayan, but not Makar Sankranti.
So with first fun fact I found with this 72 years one day movement. So if you multiply 365 days of the year times 72, so every 26,000 years you'll repeat the cycle, right? The mention of Rashi has been refuted. The claim that Indians received it from Europeans was refuted by Dr. Vartak, and he had like a lot of description. Probably I'll take some photos of the pages from his scientific dating of Mahabharata book, and we'll present it, maybe share with you, Shreya's ji too. And also Nilesh Oak also has description about that in his book about Bhishma Nirvan.
Okay. And Chetanji, I just did a rough math for question of to address the question of Damle Kaka. If we take around year 250 AD as Makara Sankranti as December 21st, and if we take Kurukshetra battle as 5,000, you said 5,561. And then I did the difference and divided by 72 years. You get 74 days. So almost like little over 2 months from December 21st. So at that time, Makara Sankranti, if somebody was following, it would have been in either in the month of September or October timeframe.
But in that sense, what Subhash Kaka was pointing at, Makar Sankranta and Uttarayan are totally different phenomena.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So for some period of time, they came together, coincided, and people started celebrating them all together at once, right? On
Precisely.
the same day. Like we do Rakhi Purnima and Narali Purnima, right? Raksha Bandhan comes on the Narali. So in Konkan region, you're from Karnataka, you said, right? So in Konkan region, they celebrate Narali Purnima, which is, Naral means Nariyal, basically.
Right.
Right. And it is celebrated on the same day where Raksha Bandhan is, right? So they are different festivals, but they are celebrated on
combined
one day. And people think that they are related, but they have no relation. It's just a coincidentally occurring on the same time. So that's what happened with Uttarayan and Makar Sankrant. And that's why people for a very long time they always celebrated them together. Now also, even
today,
December and 14th January are very distinct, but still people have this I think habit of celebrating them together, right? So that's why they still believe that the Makar Sankrant has something to do with Uttarayan.
Correct.
So it's very interesting, very nice.
Many pageants holiday or pageants day of celebration observed by Christianity. That is Shreyas might know it's well known that.
Correct. Yeah. They do that even today, Tamble Kaka. That is why I gave that word of caution that we have to learn from history. Otherwise, they are masters in picking and choosing, cherry picking the good stuff and making it their own, while completely discarding and almost degrading the original source. So even in Bharat today, there is a problem of conversions, and that is the modus operandi that they use over there as well. They use the way they got even the cultural, the rural cultural aspects. They completely absorb it, and that's how they proselytize and convert people.
Shreyas,
Yeah.
You mentioned some of the rituals and things observed by pagans were similar to Hinduism. So is there any relation? Where did they get all that from? Where did it originate from? Do we know anything about that, or was there any influence of Hinduism on them?
I would say just based on this limited knowledge that I can see a lot of influence. And like Subhash ji mentioned earlier, even from the times of Alexander, and there is actually written documentation that the reason why Alexander was so hell-bent upon trying to come to India and conquer India was because he felt his ancestors were from Bharat. So he felt that was his, in a way, Matribhumi.
Oh, okay.
But he had a way of, he wanted to conquer it and be the, almost like the king of his ancestral kingdom. Right? So there was a lot of exchange, a lot of influence. So yeah, that's why even the so-called pagans, I don't really like to call them as pagans. They were, in a way, our brothers and sisters, ancestral brothers and sisters in Europe.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about Panchang? So Panchang, the name itself suggests Panchanga, right? So Tithi, then Nakshatra, Var,
right,
and Yog and Karan. But I don't know the true meaning and how we interact with Yog and Karan in this whole chemistry here.
Right. So what I know is the Yoga and Karan, they are extremely large expanses of time, measurements of time. So for our limited, in our lifetime, we basically use the Kala Tithi.
Okay.
That's what I know a little bit. Yep. And then we have all the different Samvatsaras, even the names, that is also a cycle. So the current Samvatsara is the Shubhakrita Nama Samvatsara.
Right. That's a cycle of 60 Samvatsar names, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I was like reading about like difference between Tithi and Var. Like Var signifies it's a different definition, and Tithi goes by lunar cycle.
Correct.
Chandra or lunar cycle is like made of 29.5 days in a month, right? And that's a lunar month. Solar months are different. So we also have solar calendar, also have lunar calendar system, right? In that, Var is the time of sunrise to the next sunrise. and Tithi is, I think, time of moonrise to next moonrise.
Correct.
So I need to confirm that, but it's just the differences are actually the way we define these terms and then combine them to work with each other. And then Panchang basically is basically a relation between all these terms.
Correct.
How we
Absolutely.
use them to calculate time.
Correct. So you're absolutely right, Chetanji. That's why our tithis, it can span more than a var, or sometimes it is less than a var.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because lunar track and time scale is different, right?
Correct.
Exactly. And then nakshatra again is like plays a role here, because we divide whole like horizon around Earth in 360 degrees, and then we divided 27 parts.
27.
And then in these 27 parts, basically the whole Earth, Sun, and Moon, they are all traveling, and then the interrelations between them are noted with the nakshatra relation with them. And then so, I think the positions of lunar position and the sun position have, from the point of view of Earth, have some relation with this yoga and current. I forgot what the definition was for yoga and current. But
so in fact, one of the Bauddhic sessions that one of the Vaktas took in our Shaka, they talked about this. So maybe for the next session, I can give you their name. Maybe you can call them.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, it's very interesting.
So this can be like a part 2 to our Itihas.
Of course, yes.
And actually, I'm liking this. I'm actually loving this session, whatever is going on. Apart from the excellent session that you had, the post presentation, whatever discussion we are doing, it's I think it's a new brainstorming going on along with the time and the concept that we had that we learned since childhood. So this is good going on.
That is awesome.
Go on.
No, another thing, like Shreyas ji asked us a question there, like what is today's tithi, right? And even, I mean, nobody had answer except like Vandana ji quickly said like, because tomorrow is like Akshay Tritiya, so today must be like Vaishak Tritiya, right? So at least Akshay Tritiya helped us there, but on ordinary day, it would be difficult for people like us, like who are using and so engrossed into this Gregorian calendar, but we can't even tell our tithis. Our birthdays are celebrated on Gregorian scale. Our most of the festivals, even Maharashtra Mandal or all these organizations, the way we organize our festivals are like tithi occurs on some tithi day, but we adjust it like to the nearest Saturday or Sunday, right?
Right.
To gather more crowd and to get more. But the whole essence of the having tithi and muhurta and all of that has lost its significance because
we can definitely, with a little bit of effort, we can reintroduce it.
Yes, yeah. So we need to revive it in a way that the way it's not, it may not, once we understand how it works, the mathematics of it and how we can actually use it, because we are not used to use it in daily life. That's why we find it difficult. We have to rely on a calendar and chart and then look at it. Then only we are able to tell, right? So that needs to slightly change.
So that's why I go to the Drik Panjaga. That is my go-to. I have the mobile app as well. I make it a point to look at it every day. I even tell it to my 2 boys. They know the different masas, the seasons and the masas. So at least I'm planting the seeds, and I would encourage all of you to do that as well.
Sure, yeah, it's a very good start. Yeah, Damle Kaka, unmute.
I have
you need to unmute. Damle Kaka is trying to speak, but Damle Kaka, you need to unmute.
I have a question too.
Yes, Vandana ji.
Hi, so Shreyas ji and others, anybody who wishes to answer this, the question is that we in the, say, Indian or Hindu culture, especially, we give a lot of importance to, horoscope, which is our
Kundli
of birth, which is of course the Gregorian calendar, but also we take into account the tithi and nakshatra and rashi and everything that the Hindu calendar states. So my question is, it may be a very juvenile question again, that how is it that only our culture heavily believes in or has so much significance to matching these things when it comes to marriages and all, and even by birth also we do, there is a Janma Kundali and a Lagna Kundali, and whereas I have not heard of any other, especially nothing is being heard about in the Western civilization. So do you have any perspective on that?
Yeah, I have my couple of theories, but I'll wait for others if someone else wants to comment.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
answer
it's
that.
an open question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So technically, Phala Jyotisha is the word for what you are asking, right? So the Jyotishi, what we use for the consulting services there, especially for the matchmaking or finding a muhurta and all that. But not only India uses this. I think tarot card reading, like just by my house, actually there is a tarot card reading consultant, and she will charge probably like $150 for a question. So they make a lot of money through that. But that type of Jyotisha telling system has been there in several other cultures in different ways. Of course, their beliefs and their calculations, their traditions will be much different. Indians also use their own, and it has also not been very consistent throughout. Like different states have different theories. If you read several other books, like in Hindi, you'll find it Jyotisha differently written and if you read in Marathi, then the books are different. Even different Jyotishis have different theories based on their experiences and calculations. But I think the essence has been there similar. I mean, Shani has been like a Papa Graha, what they call, but
Yoga Karta.
But he is also dharma graha. So if you are righteous in your behavior and attitude, then the Shani doesn't hurt you, right? But if you have been like greedy about things, you have been like stealing and lying, probably then Shani probably hit you hard. When that's how the belief I've heard, or they have given characteristics to each graha, or swabhav, basically. They have been given, and they use it. It's based on different experiences and people and calculations, and maybe how good Jyotishi you meet. Probably you may have good experience with that.
Right. Yeah. Vandana ji, what I'll go ahead.
Yes, go ahead, Shreyas ji. I would like to hear your interpretation.
Sure. So the Vedic astrology, or what we call as Jyotisha, it's a Shastra. So it is a science, and I would say it is more, it's a statistical science. So over centuries, and that is why, to your question, why only Bharatiyas we follow, we had a huge pool set. And fortunately for us, we have an unbroken civilization. I know we had to go through a lot of invasions. Many of that good knowledge has been lost. But just by practicing, we have tried to sustain it. And for any experimentation that even that they do in the labs, they do a lot of use cases. For Bharatiya, we have the largest human use case. So over the centuries and thousands of years, many millennia, this statistical science has been developed and improved. So it has almost reached, or at least when the Jyotishya was at its peak, I would say it was, you could say very accurately. Again, statistics and probability, that's why they call it as probability. So I should say Jyotisha is a combination of statistical and probability science. They were able to make predictions quite accurately. Now, to Chetanji's point, the other civilizations also might have had it, but for them, they weren't as long, their longevity wasn't as much as ours. I mean, if you look at it, the Egyptian civilization is gone. The Mesopotamian civilization, which is now basically Syria, Iraq, you can see what is happening over there. It's completely decimated. Even Chinese civilization, they say it's quite old, but now it's all communist. They don't even believe in any such things. But in Hindu, that's why we call it Sanatana Dharma, and we are able to make it Sanatana because we believe and we continue to practice it. So the more we invest in it, the better it'll get. So it is definitely a Shastra. I definitely believe it. Whatever little I know, I have seen the impact of it. So again, a very interesting area that we all should focus more.
So my question is that if it is considered a Shastra, which is science, right, according to our translation. So any science should be a universal knowledge. There is no boundaries of.
There is not. But just like
it is Indian or it is European or American, there should not be any boundaries. Science is science.
Correct.
The laws of physics and chemistry and all are the same everywhere.
So
right, so there is laws and there is theories. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
If this is a science, then why isn't it uniformly accepted or practiced? I mean, practicing is a different thing, but at least accepted.
To counter that, science has its own boundaries. Like you use physics, the laws of physics are different on different planets, right? What you use, like space-time, what we use, Einstein proved the space-time behavior is different when you actually go near the black hole, right? So, but still, science is a branch of knowledge, right? The way the way science works is like you do experiments, find the truth, and you expand your horizons, and you do more greater experiments, retally your postulates before, and then work on it, right? So, and then you document all what you learned so far. So in that way, Jyotisha Shastra, the Phala Jyotisha Shastra, has been also documenting its own way, although the methods have been like a very traditional Indian methods, and they have not been like technical methods what physics or the modern scientists use, but they have been actually, they are doing a good job of keeping otherwise the Panchang what we use, they have which has been like so accurately predicting the dates and doing a very precise job. So the level of mathematics was really advanced mathematics, but their focus only was on Anka Ganit, right? It was not beyond that at that time. But the other Ganit, the Shastri, they were using it in different way, right? So the Phala Jyotisha didn't expand its horizon beyond certain limits. That's why we don't have predicting scholars today that who could tell exactly which stock will go up tomorrow, right? Otherwise, imagine what will happen.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, as Shreyas mentioned, astrology is at best a statistical science.
Yeah, Damle Kaka, you have been on board, so you tried to speak.
But astronomy is a perfect science.
Yes,
it's a physical.
And I think we should not use the word Vedic astrology. I mean, somehow we tend to use the term Vedic very loosely.
So the reason why I used it is it is the time where again there is no term called as Hinduism. It is, as I think many of us know, it comes from basically the Persians calling the people who lived on the banks of Sindhu as Hindu. If you look at any of our Vedas or Upanishads, there is no term called as Hindu. Right. So that's why in that context, I use it as Vedic, but I mean it as Bharatiya Jyotishya, if you want to call it that way.
Okay.
So I'm using Vedic and Hindu interchangeably or synonymously.
Okay. Because sometimes the term Vedic means it goes back to the Vedas, but that's not always the case. So
correct.
Since it's used so loosely. The Panchanga is somehow we tend to connect it to astrology. To the core, Panchanga is strictly astronomical calculation. Based on astronomical calculation, it gives you the tithis and the dates and sunrise times, moonrise time, moonset times, when the Adhik Maas is, when the eclipse is going to be. All these calculations have been done. Our astronomers have figured out how to do these calculations for a few thousand years.
Correct. But Subhashji, what I'll also mention is, go ahead, please.
And they've been improved over the years in terms of how to do the calculations. So Surya Siddhanta has it. Vedanga Jyotish did it 1000 BC. Aryabhat improved on it. Bhaskaracharya improved on it. And even in Maharashtra, the Ganesh Daivadnya, whose methods are used right now in Maharashtra to do the calculations. But the astronomical references are not that old. No, the Vedas don't mention anything about astrology. The earliest mention I have seen about astrology is during the time of Varahamihir, which is the 7th century.
Okay.
It's the 7th century. So, and Aryabhatta was 5th century. So astrological or statistical science or development or whatever you may want to call it did not happen until much later time, as far as I know, I'm aware of.
So, Subhaji, what I wanted to mention was Panchanga, as you said, it's astronomical. It is almost very precise. I completely agree. But they expanded it or extrapolated it more to a statistical and probability as well. So that is why even on the day of Gudi Padwa or Yugadi, when we do the Panchanga Shravana, when we get the new Panchanga for the new Samvat, there is a section that they predict what could happen. So in a way, Jyotisha has got intermingled into the, astrology has got intermingled into the astronomy as well. Yes, in the more significant section of the Panchanga, it tells the Tithi, when there is going to be solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, it tells all of that. But at the beginning, it even gives what kind of an year is expected for the Bharatiyas in Bharat, worldwide, how much rain can be expected. Even that gets predicted.
Yeah, that's the point is, since most people associate Panchanga with astrological predictions, the scientist tends to downgrade it as something not scientific. Okay? But the Panchanga to the core is based on astronomical calculations.
Correct. Agreed.
I have one.
So it's a sound scientific journal.
In America,
दामले काका तुमचं अनम्यूट आहे तुम्ही ते म्यूट वर आहात तुम्ही अनम्यूट करा एकदा हा आता बोला.
Thanks to the Madhav Dada, he always keep me in mute. Okay. My point is that in Vedanta study, Subhash Rao, in Vedanta study included not only Vedas, but Nyaya, Jyotish, astronomy, all these combined called Vedanta study. Maybe in the 5th century or 3rd century happened. But Shreyas ji, I'm also Sansar here, and my Daitwa is the Sangachalak. And with this, what you are telling about not a revival, not rewriting history, what we can do, the change, rather than criticizing whatever the system today or tradition follow here, we can Hindunize that thing. Like give an example, our friend Ramesh Chitnis, late Ramesh Chitnis, when he came also, he was also Sayansaka and Daitu also. So he called Christmas tree as a Kalpa Vriksha. So if we can do this thing, rather Hindunize the, like a Halloween. Halloween is a pagan religion. If we can call this Valentine Day as a Vasanta Utsav, come down. And so this kind of thing can be approached, will be better than the criticizing or condemning.
Absolutely.
What establish, set up the narration rather than the condemning.
Absolutely, Damle Kaka. And the thing that what troubles me is many of our own so-called, I'll call them as so-called Hindus, they put up Christmas trees and they celebrate it in such big fashion, but they don't even know the origins of it, or they just get carried away by the I mean, by what others are doing. So that is why that was one of my main intentions, to say that instead of doing it as Christmas, maybe celebrate it as Uttarayan, because that is the root of all of these festivals. It's just that Constantine picked up that date because it was already so popular to establish. And if you look at it, that's the reason why even today in Jerusalem, there is a conflict, because all of these Abrahamic religions, they always feel that it is easier to usurp whatever is well established, and that way they can continue their religion. So there is always that proselytizing nature to either Christianity or Islam, even though they all originated in that Jerusalem, that mount. They feel that they have to establish their supremacy, they have to occupy, and that causes more of conflict. But whereas in Sanatana Dharma, it's a double-edged sword. It works sometimes in our favor, but also sometimes doesn't help, because we are too open-minded. We end up adopting things that it's really not necessary.
Yes, that's a very nice argument.
Hey, this is Prasad. So I have one question. I think Subhash Kaka said the astrology came into picture or came into known world in like 7th century something, right? But what I heard or what I read, Rishi Bhrigu was the creator of Jyotish Shastra. Then how and where we know that Bhrigu Rishi was the creator of Jyotish Shastra? Is that mentioned anywhere in Vedas or any Puranas or anywhere? But still we don't know, and still we have the proof that the first appearance of Jyotish Shastra came in around like 7th century or something.
So I would say at least the documented evidence might date back to Varaha Mihira, because it's documented. But to your point, many of our traditions and even the Vedas, they were never supposed to be written. There was no written documentation of any of our Vedas. We have the written version only because of Darashikho, who got executed by Aurangzeb. Otherwise, it's always by word of mouth, and it was only passed on to someone who was capable enough to carry the knowledge forward. So to that extent, I think what you said, Bhrigu would have been the one, but there is no actual physical documented evidence. But in case of Varaha Mihira, at least it is there. We have maybe historians who have documented it.
So in Ramayana, Mahabharata, the references were made like if his son is born, the references are like, okay, he will win this kingdom and rule the people. He'll be righteous, or he will be like a bad person, like in Duryodhana's case. Vyasa basically indicated the way like a Jyotishi would, right? So there have been like references or based on the language, they were still using Phala Jyotisha style language at that time, or Rishis would probably predict the future too, right? So that has been there much before than Bhrigu, I think. But Bhrigu Samhita is like a very popular book. Everybody probably, I don't know if current version what we get in bookstores right now has authentic Bhrigu Samhita, whatever he would have done it, but there might be some connection. Madhu Dada, your hand has been.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of comments. One thing is, see, in India, Panchang, right? And then I happens to be in rural area when I came here, United States also. They were using Farmer's Almanac. Okay, before the meteorology started here, meteorology just started 50, 60 years ago or 72 years ago. But before that, they were using Farmer's Almanac. And then when I started looking that and our Panchang, it pretty much the same. It will tell when the big storm will come, when the rain will come, when the snow will come, whatever exactly. That was a similarity I found with that. And other thing is, if I'm sure one of you might have gone to Greece. Okay, in the Greece, Athena, goddess Athena, and one of the hill there, they call it, they were coming and they will offer her sari. If you see our Navaratri, 9 days, goddesses, we give different kind of saris. That was when I was listening to that, the guide was telling us how the people will come and they offer the cloth, like a sari.
Right.
And wow, wait a minute, this is exactly like our Navaratri.
Right.
So, and earlier you mentioned that how it's Uttarayan, like it's Christmas is nothing but Uttarayan. We are celebrating that. Some of those similarities are how it came from our Sanatan Devi Devata Dharma. That they were observing the same thing. Only they came up with different things, and those are the two things I wanted to. And one thing, when I was growing up, it might be wrong, okay, but the Panchang, the priest will come, Brahmin, he will come, and then they had a bunch of. One time I went to their home, and whole stack of Panchangs were there. We're talking thousands of Panchangs. Okay, and I said, wait a minute, how? And then he told me that every 32 years, it repeats. The same Panchang we can use about 32 years old. And I do not know how they come up with that. Does anybody have the answer to that?
It's actually the 60 years because
60?
every
Okay.
60, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. 32 years, I don't know.
Okay.
Because we have names for each Samvatsara, and I believe it's 60
60 years, then okay, maybe he may misspoke, or I do not know, but I misunderstood what he said. Same Panchang you can use after so many years. That's why we kept all those old Panchangs there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Damle Kaka has his hands up. Or no, somebody.
I think Vandana ji and
Vandana ji, actually, Avinash.
Avinash ji.
So I want to go back to this 25th December as Christmas, as was not randomly, but decided by this Roman king, Roman emperor. So it's actually a celebration of Sun Invictus. So here it is commercialized as the birth of Christ. So does it really coincide with the birth of Christ, or
it does not.
Fake news?
It does not at all. So we can have that discussion as well. They have done some studies, because even the story of when Jesus was born, they said that there was a star and they followed it. It is more towards spring and summertime. It is more towards May or June time frame. So it had nothing to do. December 25th has nothing to do with the actual birth date of Christ. It was a pure political motive to replace and completely impose Christianity by Constantine. And this day and age, it has become more of a commercial thing, because it becomes good for business and all the markets, kind of a thing.
But I mean, it's sort of embraced by churches and everybody, like for centuries now.
Correct.
I mean,
yeah.
So it's all based on fake news.
Right.
Does anybody know? Does anybody know the real birth date of Christ?
So that's the thing. At that time, there was no Gregorian calendar as such, because even the Gregorian or Julian calendar, it's basically the popes who introduced it.
Okay.
So they say that he was born somewhere in the summer months, or spring and summer. So it can be anywhere between April to June time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Even those calendars, they were starting in March. If you go back and count the months, October is 10th, and December 10th, and November 9th, October 8th. So if you go back, their actually year was starting in March. Just like our starts in generally Chaitra Maina, Chaitra month. it starts in generally March. That's how it was in there also. But after, I don't know exactly when they started their calendar year from January. If you say, especially from September the 7th, October 8th, November 9th, and December 10th, if you count back the way, so the 2 months difference, their calendar wasn't starting from January.
Madhav Dada,
Yeah.
for that, calendar was imposed by Roman king, number one. Number two, with the due respect, Shreyas, I did study 1 year Christian theology and Christology, little bit Christology. I would like to say, according to primitive Christian, Jesus' time after crucifixion, and Egyptian and Syrian Christian, the birthday of Jesus was January 6th.
Okay.
We have to respect their tradition, their tradition, January 6th. So 25th of December, yes, it is a little bit of change by Roman Catholic Church, which is started by St. Peter. That's a church started by St. Peter. And the whole thing is become a commercialization, like a modern corporation, everything with the Father's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas Day, Valentine's Day, you name it, Employee Day, Dog Day, Wife Day, everything like that. It's a commercial by corporation.
Now, I'll mention one last thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Last thing, Aruna Dabolkar wants to talk. Please give a chance.
She's not in the Zoom right now.
Yeah, she was in the Zoom.
We probably, but I think without having somebody like raising the hand in video or raising hand.
She came 3 times. I saw her name 3 times on the screen, but all of us, we got carried away with our knowledge.
Oh, I probably might have missed it, but I didn't notice like if she had any raised hand.
I think she said something.
Okay.
Next time, have mercy.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Anybody has any other comments, questions?
Sorry, I'll have to drop, but I'll just mention one other very interesting thing that I recently learned. But you'll have to excuse me after that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Right. So as we have seen the Gregorian calendar, each of the month has specific names, and most of the months are based on a Roman emperor. Like either August is from Augustus, July is for Julius, like that. But if you notice, after August, it becomes September. Then it becomes October, then November, December. Does anybody know why that has happened? Why suddenly it becomes September?
They used to have a 10-month calendar earlier, and that's why Saptam is close to September. Octo is like close to Ashta, and then Navam, November, and then Deka is coming from December, right? Dasha.
Correct. And
so they Julius Caesar to commemorate his getting a throne and getting the absolute power. He added like a month to celebrate as a vacation month, right? And then July came in place. Then first Emperor Augustus, he also started like, okay, let me add my month too. So he added like August. So that became like 12 months. Otherwise, they would have actually ran 10-month year cycle.
Correct. But there, Chetanji, the very interesting part is their 7th month, 8th, 9th month, it coincides with our 7th month, which is Ashwina Masa. So September is basically Sapta Ambara. So that became September. So Ashwina is our 7th month. Because we start off with Chaitra, which is almost like April time frame. So our 7th month becomes September, which is close to it's in the Gregorian, it's the 9th month actually, but they still call it as September.
Yes. Yeah, even Julian and Gregorian, if you remember the relation between them, that there is a difference of 11 days, which got corrected. And that's why actually the way we say it, like if you were born in, say, 17th century, when the calendar used by British at that time was Julian. So Gregorian calendar wasn't adopted all throughout the Europe. It required, after Pope Gregory, when he found the mistake in Julian calendar, he basically tried to convince people, but only limited people believed him. But then it required a lot of time, several years probably, to spread the whole corrected calendar. But by that time, Europeans had started discovering other countries and colonizing the world. So British people who came in, say, 17th century, they noted down some of the dates, but those dates are in Julian calendar. We have to convert it to the Gregorian by adding 11 days to them.
All right. Thank you so much. Shubhratri. You'll have to excuse me.
It was wonderful to have you. It was a very interesting topic. And thank you for introducing so many beautiful things.
Absolutely. Dhanyavad. Shubhratri.
Dhanyavad. Thank you.
Namaskar.